We're still talking about money here, navigating scams, because this is a huge thing actually. And this is one of those things that's going to make you feel more empowered. I don't know anybody who's come to India and ever been out in the market and like not gotten scammed. Like if you, the first time you come to India, you get scammed. It's just a thing. Be familiar with the currency. When you get here the first time and you get cash, this should not be the first time you're seeing it. It's not monopoly money. It's not play money. You know, you got to like understand the value of the different currencies. I also talk about some tips in my guide, which I keep referring to, of how to manage your cash and how to manage your change. You really got to like have a good idea of what you're holding and how much is what, and be able to like quickly get things out. Don't like open your whole billfold and like search around for money and you got like thousands of rupees in there. People will be like, oh, I was going to charge them this much. Now I'm going to charge them double because they have all this cash. You got to be discreet about it. This is just common sense. But don't be like fishing around looking. Have your bigger bills in one part, small bills in another. When it comes to the prices of things, if you were from a Western country, there's almost nothing that will cost you more in India than it is going to cost you in the West. Let me say that again. There's almost nothing that's going to cost you more in India than it will cost you in the West. So if it seems like it's too much, it is too much. Don't compare, oh, wow, a massage in the US is $125. So, you know, $50, $75 for a massage, that's a steal. No, it's not. It's not a steal because unless you're at like a luxury 5-star hotel, if you're going to any place, you know, a massage is like 2,000 to 2,500 rupees, which is like $30. You shouldn't be paying $75. People, you're getting scammed for this. Food also, so much cheaper. Whether you're in a restaurant, whether you are buying groceries somewhere, food is going to be a lot cheaper. So usually people don't rip you off as much with like food, just because there's so many other people around and they're kind of looking at you and they know like, all right, this should be only 30 rupees. I'm going to charge them 300. That usually doesn't happen because there's just a lot of people around usually at that point where they're watching you and they don't try to overcharge. Food is just a lot cheaper in India. Now, clothes are going to be much cheaper in India than in a Western country, unless you were going for like a luxury ethnic brand like Versace, Lehenga, or anything like that. Those are going to be more expensive, but most of your clothes that you're going to purchase is going to be cheaper. So if someone is telling you something exorbitant, you can feel free to negotiate with that person or walk away. Especially if something doesn't have a price tag on it. You're not in a store which has price tags, or if people just have to tell you off the cuff what something is, that's when you can negotiate. Or if you're having something made for you, that's when there's a lot of wiggle room there for negotiation as well. So vegetables, meals, taxis, hotel stays, everything should be less than you're accustomed to paying in a Western country, except for a luxury hotel, you're going to pay for that. That's going to be, you know, luxury hotel prices. If it seems like too much, it probably is. So most scammers will use the fact that you're trying to make a quick decision. And like people know that if you're from a Western country, or even if you're from a place that's not like India, it's so crowded, so overstimulated, that they can utilize that against you to kind of like push you into a quick decision. And so that's when most scams happen, is when you haven't thought through, they're trying to throw something new at you and you haven't thought through the implications of that. So for an example, we were in a taxi in Jaipur, and like this happens to us too. This is not just the new person. It happens a lot more when you're new, but sometimes it happens when you're, you know, even to Indians. We were in a taxi and we were in Jaipur, and we were not from there, and we wanted to go to the Amber Fort. So the guy took us to the Amber Fort and he said, well, you know, there's actually a better place to see elephants. It's just down the road. And we're like, okay, like we want to go to Amber Fort. He's like, the elephants aren't there at this time of day. And we're like, well, we thought that they were because we were told they were, but maybe he's right. I don't know. Like, what does he have to gain out of this? We just booked him through Uber. He's not like, you know, sitting outside, like taking a commission to go take us somewhere. We're like, okay. So he said, I'm going to take you to this other place where they have, you know, other elephants. So he took us to this other place, and it was like insane price. They were quoting us like triple the amount that we thought it was at the other fort. And so anyway, we ended up coming back, and then we found out that the elephants were at the fort and this guy was just taking us for a ride. It was like pretty upsetting to see that he knew we're not from there. He knew we're just out touring for the day. And he knew that we had small kids with us. So we're going to be like, elephants, elephants. Like they wanted to see the elephants. And we were going to be vulnerable to that. So he's like, well, there's not elephants here. Let me take you to the better place. We complained about him to Uber directly because that's inappropriate to try to scam somebody like that. People do this kind of thing all the time. So they will take advantage of the fact that you're not from there or that you're trying to make a quick decision. You don't have a lot of time. Be aware in those situations that's when people most likely want to scam you.
If someone is being really insistent and they are just not getting the point, you can say, like, leave me alone, firmly, mujhe chodo. Mujhe chodo. You can also say with a little bit more force, like, hey, mujhe chodo. And then they'll really get the point. But mujhe, and again, it's the aspirated jha here. So mujhe chodo. Mujhe chodo.
So in a touristy area, you're also going to see this like way inflated prices. Also in Jaipur, I saw a lady, I don't know, she might have been she looked Persian, like maybe she was from Iran or something. She was sitting there and they had put a cobra right like in front of her and she paid 1,000 rupees to see a cobra. Like that's insane. Insane. Like in a village, you would pay like 20 rupees. Or, you know what I'm saying? That is an absurd amount of money to ask somebody to just see a cobra, like sitting in your thing, because it's exotic and it's, this kind of thing in a touristy area, you have to be really, really careful because you're going to get just like ripped off. One rule of thumb is if it feels weird, it probably is. You have no obligation to like do what you said you were going to do. You can 100% back out of something. This is very normal in India. If you don't like something, leave. If you're in a restaurant and you don't like the vibe, you're not happy with the situation, but you already sat down, who cares? Get up and leave. You're not obligated to anybody to patron them for this, that. If you're in a taxi and you feel uncomfortable, get out, complain. Use Uber, use Ola. There are mechanisms in these systems to like complain about the driver, or if you feel unsafe or insecure or they're not taking you where you want them to take you, get out. Like you are not obligated to follow through on anything just because you said so. It doesn't work that way.
If you want to get out of the car and you want to say it politely and you're like, I want to get out. You don't want to yell at the guy. You can say gadi. And it's a duh, okay? It's not gadi, it's gadi. That means car. Rokiye. Gadi, rokiye. That means please stop the car. Politely. Okay? And that's what I suggest you do, and then if you want to say stop the car here, like you want to get out right here, yaha means here, gadi, rokiye. So it's gadi rokiye, stop the car. Yaha gadi rokiye is stop the car here.
I've done a lot of super dumb things because I felt like, I'll feel bad if I like back out or if I say no to this person. This has happened to me so many times in India and I always go back and like regret, like, why didn't I back out of that situation? Why did I just tell him no? Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not going to do this. Like, take me back or whatever. A lot of times drivers will like, I'm going to take you to this shop because I want you, you need to see this shop or something. No, like I'm trying to get to this place. Like, don't take me to the shop. I don't want to go to the shop. Like you can actually say that. There have been many times where I didn't and I wish I would have. Also, you are not obligated to speak to anybody on the road, any shopkeeper, on the phone, anything. You are not obligated to do that. In India, it is not rude to just ignore somebody. People shouldn't just be coming up and talking to you for no reason because they're curious. You don't have to talk to you. You are not obligated to be in a relationship or talk to anybody, have a friendly conversation with anyone.
Now, if somebody is bothering you and you really want them to get away from you and they're stressing you out, they're bothering you and you want them to leave you right now, to like get away from me. So, of course, there's mujhe chodiye or mujhe chodo, right? Leave me alone. And like get away from me is hato. Now, it's not hato. It's not a ta. It's da. Hato. 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 That's generally how people say. You can say this to animals too, by the way. If there's a cow, you can do hato, hato. Or if someone's like following you or touching you or bothering you, you say hato. I know I'm teaching you all these intense things, but like these are good things to have in your back pocket.
Unless you are with a family or with like someone that you actually know previously before this trip, then you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to share your personal information. You don't have to say anything. Indians are really, really good at asking questions, and sometimes it might feel like a little invasive. And so if it feels invasive for you, you don't have to answer, ignore, or pretend you didn't understand or something like that. You are not obligated to speak or reply to anybody. If you're visiting someone's family and they're asking you invasive questions, then that's when you kind of like tap your friend or whoever is taking you to this person's house, like, help me out here. Because then there is a little bit of a connection there. Like if you're visiting someone's home of your friend who brought you there, that might be a little different situation. But otherwise, if it's just someone on the street, off a taxi, in a tour group, like, you do not need to talk to them. And my number one favorite YouTube channel for navigating scams in India is Carl Rock. I talked about him before, but he has fantastic breakdowns of how to get out of different scams, how to find out about different scams, specifically how to navigate these things in North India.